But Kevin Durant's got nothing else to prove, man. I mean, he is a multiple-time champion. He's an MVP. And at how old he is having one of the best years of his career. What's up, everyone? Welcome to FanBuzz Weekly, a special NBA edition of FanBuzz Weekly. I am Tyler, joined alongside a very special guest, Aaron Edwards, FanBuzz contributor, Locked On Suns podcast. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yes.
How you doing, man? It's good to see you.
I'm doing good. It's good to be hanging out with you guys, talking some NBA while the break's going on.
Yeah, obviously, All-Star break happened, just winding down. We're about to kick off NBA season again, and we're in the perfect time, lull of the NBA season. March Madness coming up, football's over. Wanted to dive into some NBA, but before we do that, make sure you're checking out our newsletter for FanBuzz. You can find that in the description below or wherever you're listening. But with the lull in NBA season about to ramp up, playoff races about to step up, wanted to talk about a few teams and whether or not they're contenders or pretenders. We could talk about the Celtics, clear favorites in the East. We could talk about, all these different teams, but wanted to focus on 5 that we think are kind of on that cusp of things could go really well or things could really fall apart really freaking fast. Why don't we go ahead and start with the New York Knicks, a team that was a clear winner at the trade deadline. Without giving up a first-round pick, they acquired players like OG Anunoby, Bojan Bogdanovic, all of this depth. It's gotten into a really interesting team. Aaron, what are you thinking about this team in this final stretch of the regular season? Can they contend to the East?
Yeah, I hope that Thibs isn't their worst enemy. I think that they mostly just have to not get thibbed by May, pretty much. Just keep them healthy. Even you don't have to be a 2 seed, be a 3 or a 4. Just kind of get these guys minutes down and just be what Miami was last year. Just have the better coach in a lot of these series and have a lot of a great defense and the best player on the floor. I think Jalen Brunson's going to be either the first or second best player on the floor most of the time. And when you got that, you always got a chance. And I can just see them just needing to stay healthy during the stretch. We would probably say about Boston. They just got to stay healthy. They got to keep Kristaps healthy more than anything. And I think that's kind of the thing with the Knicks, but with everyone, because we know how Thibs can get in these situations.
You're going to play 47 minutes, OG Anunoby, and you're going to like it. But it is so interesting because this is a very deep team, a much deeper team than it was at the beginning of the season. And we're seeing guys like Isaiah Hartenstein really just emerge into extremely valuable players for the Knicks. But at the same time, can you stay healthy when Tibbs wants to run your starters into the ground? And we're already seeing Julius Randle's been knocked up and Anunoby's knocked up with his elbow injury. So that's what worries me heading into the playoffs is, have you just grinded your starters into dust by the time the playoffs roll around, and then you're just too gassed to have your stars step up? That being said, Jalen Brunson, I mean, what an absolute ascension from that guy.
Yeah, I said it before, it's probably the best tampering that's ever been done. I think it's the smartest tampering that's ever been done. You lose those picks every time. You take that trade off. I think they needed to do it, and it was kind of organically. He was always going to go to the Knicks. I don't think they had to tamper, but I think it was one of the smartest things. Luka losing him. I mean, Dallas is kind of looking good right now, but I think Luka losing a player like that was a big deal, and now he's proving it.
100% now. You got to give me your take, and this might go against everything I just said, but I just think with the injuries, I don't know if they're going to be able to stay healthy. It just seems like a team that's too banged up with a coach that just loves to ride these guys into the ground. I'm putting pretenders for now, and I think the big reason is with all the injuries and new faces, are they going to have enough time to gel before the postseason, get in that groove with what a regular rotation is supposed to look like? And I think that being out of sync in the playoffs can be really disastrous. I don't think it's they're going to be a first-round exit team, but I can't see them as title contenders yet. So I'm putting pretenders for now. Aaron, what about you?
I'm going contenders, and it's mostly one of those addition by subtraction things. I think the East has so many frauds that it's hard to have. Somebody has to be the team that comes out, and I think the East has so many frauds that you kind of have to put somebody up. And I think in a 7-game series, the team with a player that can get to the line whenever, who's strong, who can really get hot and knock down threes, and who has OG who can lock you down, and Julius Randle who can bang, and if he's depends on his headspace. If he's playing well, they can really start cooking. I think because they have so many frauds, I think the Knicks have to be contenders.
Very valid point. And I will say, I should be the number one Knicks hater as a Pacers fan. I still love OG Anunoby because, man, that guy ruled at Indiana. So I'll be rooting for him. I will not be rooting for the rest of that team. Let's move to another team in the East that is probably the most talked about team because it's just been a tornado of chaos the entire season in the Milwaukee Bucks. Adrian Griffin, first-year head coach, fired. Out of nowhere, Doc Rivers comes in to be the interim head coach. It's a team that Damian Lillard isn't playing up to what they expected when they traded him. You're seeing Holiday, who's just locking down people in Boston. Aaron, what are the big things that concern you about this team, but what are the things that also excite you?
The thing that's concerning is they just, every time you watch them, it seems like they just met yesterday. Like, yeah, you have the two best players like on the floor probably, but nothing gels, nothing looks right. Like, it just seems like they're all running new plays for the first time. And come the playoffs, like, you're going to need a bucket. You're going to need to get people open. And if you guys aren't gelled by then when is it going to happen? Like, it seems like Dame, he's missing games. He doesn't seem happy there at all. And nothing just seems to click right. It does like for spurts. Like sometimes they'll be up like 25 in a game and that game still even ends with like an 8-point win. Like it just seems like a lot of it is not gelling right. But at the end of the day, what I really like is you have Dame and Giannis. And Dame, I've been at a playoff game where he's dropped 45 before. Like it can always happen that way when you have the two best players, like all-time players, part of the 75 greatest players. Like if you have those guys on your floor, like you usually have a shot, even if your coach is Doc Rivers.
Yeah, the Doc Rivers, I think that is the concern is that man gets stuffed in a locker a lot when playoffs come around, and there's some concern there. I am encouraged by the defense. I know it's not great, but it has improved. That was a bottom 5 defense earlier this year. They're up to 17th in defensive rating at the time of recording this. I have questions. Can Malik Beasley find his shot? Because clearly a defensive liability. And after some red hot 3-point shooting to start the year, really cooled off. That's a big concern. Is Lillard going to get a big confidence boost from being all-star game MVP and 3-point contest champion? If he can bounce back and Beasley can find his shot, I think the offensive firepower could be enough to, overcome some of the defensive struggles. But again, the defense is improving. I just can't trust Doc Rivers in the playoffs until something changes. So I'm putting them as strong stamp pretenders. Are you putting them pretenders as well?
Oh, yeah, they're big pretenders to me. Like, I just can't. It's the Doc thing, and it's what happened last year. Like, Miami ran them out of the building. I know Giannis was hurt, but I said in my FanBuzz article, I can see them losing to Orlando in the first round or making it to the finals with head coach Bobby Portis. Like, anything can happen at this point.
Head coach Bobby Portis, I would pay money to see. How many games does he get ejected from in a playoff series? All of them?
Oh, yeah, every single one.
Well, why don't we go ahead and move to the West? We're going to start with a team that's kind of just become a favorite to win the title. But I just think it's a fascinating one that we have to talk about in the Los Angeles Clippers, because I might be one of the biggest James Harden haters ever. And I did not see this coming. It seems like once he got traded there and Russ decided I need to come off the bench, just everything's been unlocked for this team. And before I turn over to you, Aaron, and talk about what you like about this Clippers team, I want to point out what I've been so impressed with by James Harden. His aggregate numbers are down, like just totals, but he's averaging 8.4 assists, turnovers are down, and he's shooting 42% from 3. It's just his efficiency is so much better because he doesn't have to have the ball as much in his hands. You've got Kawhi and Paul George. You've got all these bench role players that play very key specific parts for them. And then Russ is just kind of now an energy guy off the bench, and just seems like everything's clicking. And Harden seems bought in for now. Aaron, is this sustainable? Because it's starting to feel like it is.
Yeah, I think it's sustainable because Harden doesn't have to get to the lane anymore. Like, we knew he lost a step and dudes weren't stressed about him getting by him anymore. And now he has Kawhi's going to attack the paint like furiously. Like, the dude can get in the paint whenever he wants.
Yeah.
Paul George can get into the paint whenever he wants. So James Harden doesn't have to stress the paint anymore, and he can kind of sit out there and facilitate and knock down threes. Like, this is probably the best like James Harden I've seen in a long time because he's finally given in to kind of being older, and he kind of knows what his game can be now and what it should be at this point of his career.
He almost looks like a savvy role, like third guy, right? And
Yeah.
honestly, it's a phenomenal fit for him. He's always had a good shot. He has that bag still. It's just, can he sustain it for 36 minutes when you're the guy? Now he doesn't have to be. He can pick the spots when he needs to take over. I mean, I don't know if you watched that Hawks game maybe a couple weeks ago. I think he had a 4-point play. It was
Oh
a real
yeah.
back and forth game. Just all of a sudden, it was just like he's not gassed from trying to be the guy the whole game, and he took over in the final few minutes. That's the James Harden where he's still special. And to have him with all of these other players, and I think you have a phenomenal coach in Ty Lue, who is finding a way to manage all of these personalities and just all of this talent. And it's just clicking like something I've never seen. And again, I'm a Pacers fan. I hope Paul George never wins a ring unless he comes back to Indiana, which then, welcome back. They're an easy contender for me, and it hurts me a little bit to say.
Yeah, they're big time contenders. Suns have been 4-5 with them for a while, like the last couple of weeks, and even Suns fans are like, we don't want to do this one first. Like, let's try to do this one second round. But nobody wants the Clippers first. It's just going to be a disaster, and you definitely don't want them healthy coming off like first round of the playoffs. Just immediately getting healthy Kawhi, like he's probably going to miss a couple games before the end of the season, and he's going to come in fresh, and you just don't want that.
Yep. All right, going from the older veteran superstar team to what I think is the scariest team in the NBA over the next 5 years in the Oklahoma City Thunder. You've got a legitimate MVP candidate in SGA. You've got a Rookie of the Year contender. He's not going to win it, but Chet Holmgren, who is just having a phenomenal breakout first season now that he's healthy. And then you've just got depth everywhere. What is your favorite part about this Thunder team?
That they're gonna get so much better, and this is kind of the worst version of them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's probably like my favorite thing is they probably don't even know, because this is gonna be their first playoff series. They don't even know what they're getting in for. And I think that they're gonna definitely go in as a higher seed, but once they get that like playoff minutes and like the vibes of it, like they're gonna know how that feels, and they're gonna be ready for it the next time around.
I think my favorite development of this Thunder team, because SGA has obviously been good for a couple seasons now, it's the emergence of the good Jalen Williams, because he's no longer the good Jalen Williams. He's the great Jalen Williams. He's putting up 19, 4, and 4, but it's the efficiency at which he's doing it, shooting 54% and then 45 from 3, which is just outrageous. Like, this guy is just, he had a breakout game the other day. He can put up points. He can do pretty much everything you're asking for him on the court. And I just think having a guy like that alongside Chet and SGA unlocks everything. My big concern is, like we just brought up, this is a team with no real playoff experience. It is super young. They brought in an extremely old Gordon Hayward to be a veteran presence. And I know he is a good player. He is a very good player. Shout out Butler. But man, he's getting up there. So, and before you go and give me your take and what you think from this team, I'm going to zag a little here. I think they're pretenders until I can see what they look like in one round of the playoffs. Is it a team that is going to respond to the success well? I think they will. I think it's a very mature team for how young they are. But I'm not fully sold on them as title contenders until I can see how they respond to all this success in a playoff format. So I feel stupid saying they're pretenders, but again, I will quickly change that if they just sweep a team in the first round.
Yeah, I'm going pretenders just because I think the atmosphere of the playoffs is different, and they're young, and it's really going to take some getting used to. Say they do get a team like the Clippers in the first round, and it's not unheard of to be like, oh, wow, Oklahoma City's down 17 at halftime. Like, the Ty Lue, he knows how young players are. Like, he's been in the league. Like, he would have a team that, like, would just attack them and hit them in the mouth, and they don't. Shai doesn't know that he's not going to get those calls in the playoffs. Like, the whistle gets tight and you don't get to the line a lot in the playoffs. And let's see how he responds to that. And I kind of got to see how he responds to that whistle getting tighter once the playoffs start.
And one more thing before we move on. They should have traded for size at the deadline instead of Hayward, because if Chet goes down or is in foul trouble, you can kind of pick them apart in the paint. And when you're playing a team like the Nuggets, let's say, and you got Jokic down there, you might get picked apart. So there's a couple unanswered questions, but like I said, over the next 5 years, I would hate to be in the West having to play against this Thunder team, because they're just going to keep getting better and better and better. And they still have approximately 7,000 draft picks over the next 4 years. So curious to see how this team changes over the next couple of seasons. But Aaron, I know there's a team you want to talk about. I figured we'd save the best for last. I wanted to put the Pacers on here to talk about them, but clearly not contenders yet, and it's too small of a market. I know no one watching is going to care about my Pacers. Let's talk about your Phoenix Suns. The floor is yours, Aaron. Where do you want to start with this conversation?
The defense has gotten better, by the way. The last 3 weeks, I think we've been like in the top 15 in defensive rating. Like a lot of people were getting on our defense. I was getting on our defense. It was pretty terrible at the beginning of the season. It's the health thing. Like I think that KD started the season playing too many minutes, and I just want to get those minutes down a little bit. But I just like where the Suns are. Book is on fire right now. Beal was finally looking comfortable before he tweaked his hamstring like 2 games before All-Star break, but they said he'd be fine. And Royce O'Neal, that was the pickup. Every Suns fan wanted Royce O'Neal at the deadline, and it was kind of one of those things. I mean, a couple wanted Miles Bridges too, but that was just going to be a weird situation. Yeah. But I like Royce O'Neal's defense, and it's going to put Grayson on the bench, but I think that's fine because he's the best shooter in the league right now, and having him come off the bench and do those second minutes with Bradley Beal is just going to be nice. I really just like our 8-man rotation now. I mean, we wanted another big because Nurk just drives us insane sometimes, but
I can see that.
Yeah, I just think in a series, like, we won't blow people out of the water, but we will have Kevin Durant, who's having one of the best seasons of his career at age 36 or whatever. Yeah. And I just think that in a playoff series, you got to beat them 4 out of 7, and we just got to get there healthy for it.
You're overlooking the biggest acquisition of the trade deadline buyout market. Thaddeus Young, one of the greatest players in NBA history. I don't know what you're talking about there. Is he going to do anything for this team, or is he just not going to see the floor?
People were saying, like, people were posting highlights of when he was, like, younger, like, we're getting this Thad Young, and it's like, no, he can't really do any of this anymore.
That's my favorite NBA Twitter thing, by the way, is guys showing highlights from, like, 10 years ago about a player they just got. Like, he's almost 40 now. Like, we can pump the brakes here.
Yeah, but I think, like, he can be like a backup big, so KD can play the 4 sometimes, but I don't see him getting many minutes. Like, especially if he can't move his feet. Like, I'm not going to have a big that can't move their feet get switched out for another big that can't move their feet. It's just kind of pointless with going Nurk to Thaddeus Young and KD just having one of the best defensive years of his career, too, by the way. Like, I just think that's just putting too much stress on KD bigs-wise, and that's why we wanted more of them, because KD is playing way too much right now.
Yeah. Small ball KD center is interesting, but I don't know how sustainable it is. I know what you're going to say, so I'll just say it. I have them as contenders. Devin Booker has been one of my favorite players to watch in the NBA over the past few years. I always describe him like a really gifted pass rusher in the NFL, where he varies up his moves or what his plan of attack is, but it's decisive. And that's what the special pass rushers in football do. And again, I'm a football guy, so that's more of how my brain works. But I just love that anytime he's attacking, or he's got one-on-one, he's got ISO, or he's posting up, he has a different move he's going to go to, but he's not like thinking about it. He just has already decided what he's going to do. And almost always he's going to score. One of my favorite players in the NBA, and pairing him with this Kevin Durant, who's just, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's still playing like this at this level. Yeah. All of these things terrify me. I know the West is super competitive, but I do think if this team stays healthy, it is a legitimate contender.
Yeah, I think they're a contender. I think just whoever comes out of the West is just going to have to survive a bloodbath. I think everybody's like, you're going to get the Warriors coming out of a play-in first round, whoever is the number 1 seed probably, or something like that. Or do you want the Lakers to sneak in while Anthony Davis is probably going to be defensive player of the year? I think it's just top to bottom. Like, every single team, if they get hot or if something happens, can get you out of there. And that's what's going to be fun about the West. But I think having Book and KD and controlling, like, I just mostly worry about the defense, but having the 2 best scorers on the floor that can score from the paint to the mid-range to the 3, like, just having 3-level scorers like that is going to be big come playoff time.
I think this has been one of the more entertaining NBA seasons I've watched in a while. Quick take. Did you like the in-season tournament?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I think it was really fun. And I think, like, people, like, had beefs and stuff. I mean, you watched it. Like, you guys got
of course I did.
The Bucks again. You probably loved that. Like,
it was amazing.
I was like, real beef is back. Like, they hate Halliburton. The Bucks hate him. Like, this is going to be fun. Like, I was really into that.
I loved the stakes. I think it gave us more investment in the season early. And then just with the amount of talent in this league, I mean, just top-notch season. So who are your contenders and pretenders for this NBA season as we wrap up, get ready for the playoff picture? Let us know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Aaron, really appreciate having you on. We got to do this again once the playoffs start coming up.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Of course. Well, thanks so much for watching. I'm Tyler. That's Aaron. We'll see you next time.